Hello and welcome everyone to the PHA podcast. My name is Stefan Gillum, and this is your voice in affordable housing. So glad that you could join us for what actually is the first episode of the PHA podcast presented by AMA Consulting Group, LLC. And I don't know why we always put the LLC on the end of it, but we do. And again, my name is Stefan. I am with AMA, and I have the honor of having a distinguished guest with me today, and that is Antonio Williams, who is joining us from the Village Communities of Texarkana, which is a very, very interesting name for a public housing authority. How did you guys, we're just going to jump right in because I'm so intrigued, how did you all end up being the Village Communities of Texarkana, and what made you choose that name?
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here to be your first guest.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to a lot of great podcasts in the future. And I'm going to tell all my colleagues about you as well.
Oh, great. Tell everybody. Tell everybody everything all the time, but always make it good stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good deal. Good deal. So how did that come about, going to Texarkana and how?
Yeah. How did you guys choose like the Texarkana name? Were you still a public housing authority?
Yes.
Or did you move into something else?
We're still a public housing authority. We're doing business as Village Communities of Texarkana, Texas. What we did was we decided to move forward and change directions based on the positive momentum that we've had and on the successes that we've had since I've been there. And then we tried to eclipse the old stigmas that we've had in the housing authority in Texarkana, Texas, to provide more positivity and some more community type positivity. And then we changed the name and we changed the game that way.
Okay. I like it. I like it. So before we get any further, Texarkana is a very interesting name of a town. And if I remember correctly, it's a part of like 4 different states. What is Texarkana like? It's in Texas, or is it in Texas? Where is Texarkana?
Well, it's in Texas and it's in Arkansas. It's the Twin Cities.
Okay.
There's a Texarkana, Texas municipality in Bowie County, and there's a Texarkana, Arkansas municipality in Miller County, Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, the first was in Texarkana, Texas, Bowie County, and then Texarkana, Arkansas, Miller County.
And you're Texarkana, Texas.
We're Texarkana, Texas.
Okay.
Of course, we are part of the Arklatex. Every once in a while, they may say Arklatex Homa, which is...
Wait, what? The what?
Arklatex, which is Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana.
Okay.
That's the most popular acronym that they use. But then if you get old school with it, it's Arklatex Homa, which includes Oklahoma.
Really?
Yes.
Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana.
Right. So we're right there, right in the middle of all of those. Right there at Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texas. We're only about 45 minutes from Shreveport. We're an hour and a half from Little Rock, Arkansas, 2.5 hours from Dallas, Texas, and about a 20-minute drive to the state line of Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. So now your career in public housing and affordable housing has been quite the journey. Tell me a little bit about how you actually got into the industry and what that looked like for you.
Okay. Well, I didn't start in public housing. I started in the defense industry.
Okay.
I worked for the federal government for a few years, and I left the federal government and worked for a couple of Fortune 500 companies. When I worked for the federal government and Fortune 500 companies, I was in contract administration and business process reengineering. So when I moved over from there to change my career to affordable housing, I was at the Atlanta Housing Authority, which was troubled at the very beginning. I utilized my skills in business process reengineering, contract administration, to put together a program to help the housing authority in Atlanta, Georgia, off the trouble list by looking at the different functional areas, changing the business processes, re-implementing those and providing critical oversight. So they became off the trouble list, high performers, perfect score, and then I left the housing authority to start my own business.
Really?
Started my own business, Erudition Dynamics, Inc. We're still in business, but it's kind of dormant right now.
Yeah, because you got so much work to do in Texarkana. Well, what was it? Texarkana, I forgot. I get it right.
Well. So what happened with Erudition Dynamics? I had an opportunity to work with housing authorities, Northeast, Newark, New Jersey. Went to the Virgin Islands for a few years.
Okay.
Back to.
How do I sign up for that one?
It's good, but when you're working, you go in when the sun comes up and you leave when the sun comes down. So
never mind.
So there's a lot of good work though.
Okay.
And then came back to the States and back to the housing authorities. And then I decided to get out of the business and then go back to the housing authority in Mobile, Alabama, and spend some time there, 5 years. And then I came to Texarkana.
Okay. Now you said you guys changed the name and changed the game in Texarkana. So
yes.
Tell me a little bit about the evolution that you've done in Texarkana, which what I imagine is not the largest of housing authorities in the country.
No, we're not the largest. We're considered a mid-sized housing authority. Well, first of all, changing the game. Coming inside, we had to change the attitudes of the existing employees, provide a different look at doing business, entrepreneurial mindset.
So what did that look like? Because I know there's a lot of PHAs that are looking to change the mindset of their staff, right? They've got staff that's been there for 20 years, 30 years, however many years, and you've got a new executive director, a new ED, a new board of commissioners that have come on board to try to help manage this thing and pull it up and take it to the next level. What does it look like to revamp the mindset of your staff?
Well, it's not an easy job because those employees that's been there 20 years or so, they always say, this is how we used to do it.
This is how we always did it.
How we always did it. And once you hear that, you're in trouble. So we have to kind of make sure, number one, first of all, do we have the right amount of staff people there? When I got to Texarkana, we probably had double the amount of people that we needed to have.
Oh, wow.
So we had to cut the staff, and those were probably the first type people that I cut with people that had that type of mindset. Then you try to look for someone who's customer service oriented, who's easily trainable, who can see your vision and want to go with your vision. And that way you kind of, flush their brain out and put some new things in, but keep the baseline there in terms of your training that you had in affordable housing, and then moving forward.
Okay. And so then as you are kind of developing the staff, right, how do you then ensure that the pieces that they are bringing to the table, because you do have a lot of staff that have great ideas, and one of the reasons they get into the this is how we've always done it mode is because 20 years ago they had this magnificent idea that nobody wanted to run on, and they've just been sitting there with it dormant. So how do you then make sure that you're able to incorporate some of the vision and ideas of your staff as you're trying to put your vision in place as well?
Right. Well, what I try to do is paint a picture of here's how it is here in Texarkana.
Right.
Here's where we want to be in Texarkana. And let me show you why. And I show them examples and best practices of other areas, same municipality size, same demographics and things like that, and talk about the accolades that you get for operating at this particular level and looking into the future.
Right.
Sometimes, for the most part, they'll grab a hold of that particular vision, and it's easier to kind of get them motivated to move towards the future.
Now, you in Texarkana, you all recently, or I don't know how recent it was, but you completed a RAD conversion.
Yes.
And so that RAD conversion, what would you say was the things that you learned most about implementing that strategy? And then also, how are you measuring that investment that you put into that RAD conversion?
I learned a lot through the RAD because RAD is kind of new itself.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So when they started,
and everybody wants to make a RAD conversion. Right?
Everybody wants to, then they should.
Yeah.
One of the things that I remember when I was in Atlanta, when we got off the trouble list, HUD gave us a question, and the question was, what would you do if we didn't provide you subsidies or capital funds the way you have it right now? How would you operate and provide affordable housing? And it was an open-ended, not a correct or wrong answer. Just provided an answer. We didn't know why they asked that question.
Right.
But then fast forward to now, we see why they did that, because there's a lot of cuts. And so we just have to think more entrepreneurial. So for Texarkana, Texas, that kind of brought back that memory, and I figured that we should be more entrepreneurial. And so with the RAD conversion, we knew that we were not going to be self-managing and getting those asset management fees. So we had to be more entrepreneurial to provide other revenue-generating income from outside of the normal box of affordable housing, which may be development, inducing bonds, providing technical assistance, and things like that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned in Atlanta that when you came in Atlanta, they were a troubled housing authority, right?
Yes.
And you were able to get them to a certain level. So I imagine you've got experience in helping troubled housing authorities. How do you determine, aside from a recognition by HUD, how do you determine this is a troubled housing authority? Like, what are some of the red flags, things you need to be looking at, paying attention to recognize that either your housing authority is troubled or it's kind of leaning towards the troubled side?
Yeah, some of those things that we talked about earlier, when you talk to the staff and they always say this is how we always do it.
Yeah,
that's an indicator. Customer service complaints could be an indicator.
A lot of people don't pay enough attention to their customer
service. They don't pay attention,
complaints.
and they can make or break an executive director.
Yeah, and you can really find trends. Like if you're paying attention to what's being said from a customer service standpoint, you can really find some trends to say, you know what, we have a gap here that we might want to pay attention to.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we look at when we assess the housing authority outside of the regular in-the-box indicators that HUD look at.
Right. We
also look at the financial strength of it. If you have millions of dollars in your reserves, but your units are falling down and you have a lot of customer complaints and you're not obligating your funds within the amount of time frame you need to obligate them in, then there's issues there also. And so we look at those outside of that. And then we look at, are they positioning themselves for the future? Do they have the right staff in place with the capabilities and skill sets to take them to the future?
Right.
We try to get these guys that way as well.
Okay. So now, running back to Texarkana, you said that, you implemented the RAD conversion, and part of that was based on a conversation or a question that HUD put out saying, what would you do if we didn't give you any money, basically? We stopped giving y'all money all the time.
Right.
How would you provide affordable housing? So how, now with this RAD conversion in place, how are you balancing that profitability and maintaining the mission that you have in place, not only for the village communities of Texarkana, but also to uphold HUD's mission as well?
Right, exactly. And so that particular situation with affordable housing has gotten worse in the years that passed, and it's gotten even worse in the previous years with the pandemic situation.
Yeah.
So there's a big need in affordable housing. And by converting over to RAD, you do get all of your units revitalized, and it's beautiful and everything else. But say, for instance, a housing authority like Texarkana may have 1,000 units square that they deal with. But and so you have that all at 100% occupancy. And then a pandemic comes, and you have middle-class individuals that would lose their jobs. And then they're
right,
low wealth individuals, and they need housing. And so what do? So that conundrum forces the housing authority to be more entrepreneur-minded, more strategic, and try to find ways of building new affordable housing. So that's the thing that we try to do. We try to not only take care of what we have to do, but also build additional affordable housing, and also do development deals, get some fees from that, and then put that back into the community and build more houses that way.
Right. One thing, so when I talk to different public housing authorities around the country, because, even in places like we're at FADA right now for their annual conference, and it's been wonderful so far.
Absolutely.
And when I get a chance to kind of interact with PHAs and I get to talk to them and find out what's going on with them, one of the things that I learn is that in that space of making those conversions, everybody wants to do the RAD conversion. They're not really looking at what it's going to take from the PHA.
Right.
Give us a little insight on what is necessary specifically from a partnership standpoint, right? Because a lot of PHAs think, oh, we're going to do it ourselves. Yeah. And there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of connection, community, a lot of people you got to get on board in order to do a real good RAD conversion.
Right. If you're a small and mid-sized housing authority that don't have the actual technical expertise to do a development deal, my suggestion is to get some technical assistance to partner with.
I know a place. I know a team that could really help them out with that.
Is that right?
Yeah, who is that? They could hit me up about that. I know somebody maybe will work that out for.
Well, that sounds good. Well, we definitely need that out there because there's 3,500 housing authorities, and probably 1 to 5% of those are large housing authorities with that expertise, but the rest of them don't have that.
Right.
So there's a big need out there for the housing authorities like that. But we did we did self-develop, and that was a very, very painful and educational process. It was successful. Right. It was very successful, but it was very painful going through that process. And we got it done, and that gave us the skill sets that we needed to do other things.
Right. So your website has one of the few websites that I've seen that has links to scholarship opportunities. Tell us a little bit about how that came in play. What is that for? What does that mean for you guys?
Well, we want to provide opportunity for everyone that needs the opportunity. And we may not be able to provide it out of our pockets, but we can connect you to the dots and the people that has monies to provide to people of need that need that. So, for instance, I think we have a link with NARO's calendar project, and the scholarship that NARO has, not only from the state and the regional, but also a national. We connect those guys to those links. And then we also have scholarships that we provide to our tenants. From high school students that may be valedictorians or salutatorians, and also single mothers who want to go back to school. We provide scholarships for that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we may not have a lot of money to do a lot of those philanthropic type things, but we know a lot of areas that has money that sometimes expire, and after all it rolls over, we want to make sure that we can give everybody access to the money to spend it before it rolls over.
Right. What led you to making some of those scholarship opportunities available? Because it's very important that our PHAs make an impact in the community. What are some other areas that you guys or strategies that you've used in order to try to make an impact in your community?
In addition to the other things that we're doing statewide and things like that, we put together a home ownership program locally in Texarkana.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, and it's called Sweet Home Texarkana. So Home Sweet Home Texarkana. Yes, absolutely. So what we do is we're using landfill, land bank, land transfer type strategies to partner with the city of Texarkana and partner with the county of Bowie County and get their properties that they've taken over through taxes or whatever the case may be, and that's sitting there just not serving any purpose at all,
Right.
just sitting there dormant. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to leverage those properties and provide some incentives to middle to the lower income individuals to get the American dream of affordable housing, brand new housing. So we partnered up with some contractors. We mobilized a base of contractors. We're partnering with some banks around town, some banks around town, and also TDHCA and TSHAC. They have also monies that they can provide to people that qualify for that.
Right.
And so just like the scholarship program, we're providing the resources and pointing them in the right direction and saying, here's how you get a grant so you don't have to pay your down payment. Here's how you get 100% financing provided that you qualify. If you don't qualify today, go ahead and do what you have to do to qualify next time. It's not going to be a short-term race. It's a long race. So if you don't qualify now, you put the sweat equity in just like the contractors will, and just like TSHAC and the banks, and just like we will. And you have to put your sweat equity in to get the American dream, you'll appreciate it more. So we're doing that locally as well.
So a lot of focus has been on RAD conversions, a lot of focus on public housing. Tell us a little bit about your HCV programs. Are you still rocking HCV and moving it through? How are you attracting people? If so, what does that look like for Texarkana?
We're still rocking HCV, and that is our newest billywhack. It's not our newest billywhack. It's been around since the 70s and 80s, but it's probably the most successful program that HUD has, that partnership with private and government. So now that we went RAD, we have project-based vouchers, and along with our tenants-based vouchers, and we have some mainstream vouchers and some badge vouchers, and we also have a very robust wait list. We're trying to get some more owners in, and we also positioning ourselves to assist smaller housing authorities that did not have vouchers that are transitioning their portfolio over to vouchers to help to administer those, to help them out as well as give us more income as well.
How are you attracting more landlords? Are you finding success there, or are you finding roadblocks? What does that look like for you guys?
We're finding success there. However, we're noticing in our wait list that 3 bedrooms are pretty popular.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're trying to find landlords with 3 bedrooms. We may put the others in the pool, but we may want to add some additional, more 3 bedrooms as of right now than the 1 bedrooms.
Got you. Okay. So I ask everybody this question whenever I sit down and do an interview about anything. So I'm going to ask you this as well. Give you a couple of minutes to think about it. But the question is, if I could give you a microphone or a megaphone, I won't give you a microphone, I'm going to give you a megaphone.
Okay.
If I can give you a megaphone, and when you click that button on that megaphone, it will instantly allow everybody in the affordable housing industry to stop what they're doing, focus all their attention, and instantly be able to hear whatever it is that you're saying. What would you tell everyone in the affordable housing industry?
In the industry?
Yes.
That's the housers and everybody.
Housers and everybody.
What I would say is, keep in mind, I want you to understand how things are running in your town may be pretty decent, but from totality standpoint, the entire United States has a very, very critical need of affordable housing. It may be pretty comfortable here in some ebbs and flows, but there's a lot of places that are very, 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 very in dire situation.
Right.
We need to understand that and talk to your legislators, to vote on the right people, to do the right things, to provide safe, affordable, state-of-the-art affordable housing to anyone that desires housing.
Beautiful. I love it. So a couple more questions before we go. We have heard over the past week or so whenever you listening to this podcast or watching it, this is my timestamp. We heard over the last week or so, I know you're not supposed to do that in podcast. We heard over the last week or so that Corona is officially over. COVID is done officially. It is no longer a national emergency. It has been cleaned and cleared. Who knows if that means it's going to start back up next week or not, but what is that transition out of the COVID tragedy, the COVID emergency for public housing? What does that look like for you guys in Texarkana? Because I know for a lot of PHAs, that's been a slow transition out of COVID. Some PHAs are still using some of their emergency funds. They're still, moving people through that process. What does that look like for Texarkana?
We spend all of our emergency funds strategically. We had an opportunity to flex our working hours, which I think that worked out well because we got more done. I mean, some people don't, but we got a lot more done working remotely.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I've run into a lot of PHAs that are very adverse to doing anything remote.
Right.
They want everything on site. They want everybody to fly in and be there for a week and a half and go
Right.
through the documents on paper
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. What did that remote transition look like for you?
Well, it looked good for us because, as you recall in the very beginning, when I had to kind of trim the fat a little
Right.
bit, the people that we had left over were people that followed the vision, and they wanted to make sure that the vision worked. And so whether they were in the office or whether they were not in the office, they were still following the vision. So that worked out very, very well. However, and this is not a negative.
Right.
Some people.
It felt a little like a pause on that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of a funny thing. A lot of the people don't want to stay home. Because they may be home with their spouse. They love their spouses.
Right.
You don't want to
But
be.
not all the time.
All the time. So you want to get away. So some of them will say, Mr. Williams, I prefer to come in, at least a couple of days. Just I just can't stay at home all day and then the weekend and so on and so forth. So we allow them to do that.
Okay.
So
what is your training programs, or have you noticed like with new staff coming in? Because I imagine when you trim the fat, so you got people that follow the vision, but you also found times where you had to bring new people on board.
Right.
So as you're bringing people on board, what does that training look like for you in Texarkana? How are you making sure that they're getting that continuing training and that they're still staying on board with everything that you're doing?
Right. Well, coming in from the street, if you don't have any affordable housing experience,
it's rough.
It's rough.
Yes.
So we give them a year to get certified in certain fundamentals. After that, then of course, we give them some tricks of the trade. And then, of course, with the industry groups, FADA, NARO,
Right.
and so on and so forth, they have specialized training. And then we also give them training outside of the industry, customer service type training and development type industry training, tax credits and things like that.
Right.
To give them a well-rounded, eclectic skill set to kind of make sure that they can manage any situation that comes in front of them. So we keep it going and as much as we possibly can.
Okay. All right. Any last words, not like firing squad last words, but words of wisdom that you would like to give to anybody that is watching or listening to this podcast right now?
Right. I think that it's very, very value add to come to these conferences and to meet your business partners like yourselves that has technical expertise and has best practices experience that can help you seamlessly get to where you need to get to faster. And I would suggest everyone out there to continue to come to these types of situations and then meet with your colleagues, meet with your business partners and bring it home and continue to kind of bridge that gap and kind of share with to people as well.
Right. Well, fantastic. Antonio, I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Episode number 1 in the books.
In the books.
So we rocking and rolling now.
Yes, sir.
Once people get to episode number 2, it's going to feel like we've been doing this for 20 years.
There you go.
And everybody who's watching, who's listening, thank you so much for joining us at the PHA Podcast. We will continue these episodes over and over again with lots of great guests, fantastic information, and ways that you can get your PHA exactly where you want it to fit your community perfectly. Catch you guys next time.